Stop scrolling. If you were born between 1965 and 1980, this video will make you feel seen for the first time in your life. And if you weren't, you're about to understand why your Gen X parent, boss, or coworker acts the way they do. Here's something wild. There's an entire generation that built the internet, raised functional adults, and keeps businesses running, yet they're basically invisible in every cultural conversation. While boomers and millennials fight online, Generation X just keeps their head down and gets stuff done. But here's what's fascinating from a psychological perspective. Their silence isn't weakness, it's survival strategy. Let me paint you a picture. It's 1978. You're 8 years old. The school bus drops you off, and you pull out a key hanging from a dirty shoelace around your neck. You unlock an empty house, no parents, no babysitter, no way to contact anyone. You're just alone for hours. By 1984, 7 million American kids were coming home to empty houses every single day. That's not an anomaly. That's an entire generation being psychologically rewired in real time. Psychologists call this a high contingency environment. Every action has immediate, unavoidable consequences. You can't text mom for permission. You can't Google what to do. You make a choice and you live with what happens next. This creates something called hypervigilance, the ability to predict problems before they arrive. Gen X isn't pessimistic. They're running constant mental simulations because that's literally how they survive childhood. But here's where it gets dark. These kids watched their parents preach commitment and loyalty, then saw divorce rates explode. They watched their fathers give 30 years to companies only to get pink-slipped during the next downsizing wave. The lesson landed hard. Systems betray you. People disappoint you. Promises mean nothing. This created what psychologists call defensive pessimism, hoping for the best while preparing for the worst. Except Gen X doesn't see it as pessimism. They see it as pattern recognition. And it built emotional armor so thick that people mistake their self-protection for coldness. Want to know why Gen X barely exists on social media? It's not because they don't understand technology. They literally built most of it. It's because they grew up when privacy was normal. When you did something embarrassing, maybe 10 people knew. It didn't live forever on the internet. To them, broadcasting your life online doesn't feel liberating. It feels dangerous. They learned early, the less people know about you, the safer you are. So they watch, they lurk, they observe, but they don't participate. Not because they can't, because they remember what privacy felt like, and they refuse to trade it for likes. Everything's a joke. Nothing's that serious. Keep it light, keep moving. This ironic detachment didn't come from nowhere. Try growing up during the Cold War doing nuclear fallout drills where teachers calmly explained how hiding under your desk would save you from thermonuclear war. Adults acted like total annihilation could happen any Tuesday, but also, don't worry, everything's fine. When you're raised in that kind of cognitive dissonance, you learn to hold contradictions. You learn to laugh so you don't scream. You keep emotional distance because attachment feels like setting yourself up for inevitable pain. Despite all this chaos, Gen X developed one of the most interesting work ethics of any generation. They don't post LinkedIn manifestos about hustle culture. They just show up and execute. This was forged through brutal early jobs, paper routes at 5 a.m., bagging groceries, calculating change in their heads when systems crashed. They watched their parents get destroyed by corporate America, so they never believed in company loyalty. But they're obsessed with being competent, being valuable. They can't control whether they'll get laid off, they learn that early, but they can control whether they're the last person anyone would want to lose. Here's the thing about Gen X and authority. They respect competence, not titles. If you've earned your position through actual skill, they'll follow you anywhere. But if you're just an executive who talks well but doesn't deliver, zero patience. They'll quietly undermine you while smiling to your face. They question authority because they watched incompetent leaders make catastrophic decisions their entire lives. Watergate, Iran-Contra, the AIDS crisis mishandled with criminal negligence. They learned young. People in charge don't necessarily know what they're doing, and blind obedience is for suckers. Economically, Gen X got hammered repeatedly. The oldest graduated into recession. The middle ones got crushed by the dot-com crash. The youngest came of age right as 2008 nuked everything. This is why so many have multiple income streams, not because they're naturally entrepreneurial, but because they've learned viscerally that nothing lasts. Research shows Gen Xers report significantly lower rates of seeking social support during stress, not because they don't have people to ask, but because asking feels like weakness. They were programmed to handle things alone. It makes them incredibly capable in crisis, but also means they struggle with vulnerability, with letting people in, with admitting they might need help. Generation X might be the last generation that truly remembers being bored, being alone with their thoughts, solving problems without instantly Googling answers. They're not better than other generations, just different, shaped by a specific moment when the old world was dying, but the new one hadn't arrived yet. They're the bridge generation, the middle child of modern history. And bridges don't get parades or recognition. They just hold things together, expecting nothing in return. Here's what I need to know. Are you Gen X and I just described your entire psychology? Or are you from another generation and finally understand why your Gen X parent never asks for help? Drop a comment right now telling me your generation and one thing from this video that hit differently. I'm reading every single comment because I want to understand how generational trauma shapes who we become. And if you're Gen X, do you think your latchkey childhood made you stronger, or did it cost you something important? That's the debate I want to see in the comments. Let's go.